Hello everyone, welcome to Critical Conversations with the Compass Foundation. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Hussein.
I am Shanta Sipasan, another host.
And well, before we have Mr. Taklal Singh introduce himself as our guest co-host today, I want to just before we get to you, right? If that is okay. I know that we have someone who's missing from our presence here today. One of our permanent hosts, Mrs. Narmada Ramjit Singh. She's very busy and she'll be busy for about 2 to 3 weeks, but she'll be back with us. She actually has a passion project that she's working on, and so I want to plug this a bit that this Monday on the Morning Brew she'll be doing an interview. So I want our Compass family and the Critical Conversations crew to tune in and look at that interview where she
30 on Monday. The
Correct.
22nd, yes.
So we have also with us, not just filling in for her, but someone who is a friend.
No stranger to the Critical Conversations team.
And so we have one of our, not just you're going to be interviewed today, but one of our co-hosts. So I hope you're excited for the entire show.
I am. I'm a victim of persuasion today, so I'm here.
Yeah. And we want to congratulate Narmada on this passion project. I don't want to say too much because
I think when she comes, she would explain it for herself what is this secret passion project she's working on. But Chris, while we congratulating on the show, I must congratulate you on graduating with your BSc in process engineering from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. I saw last week you posted on social media, you plastered it all over social media, and I must say a hearty congratulations to you. I know that you worked so hard over these last 2 years, and it wasn't easy.
No.
It wasn't easy at all. But heartfelt congratulations to you. How do you feel being an engineer now?
I feel contented, grateful for my support system, and I also feel hopeful. I'm very optimistic right now, and I know that person say, well, he's still young, but I do feel optimistic about this next, or the next chapters in my life.
And I'm sure that final year project, tell us about it now, because I feel you got some gray hairs from that.
No, I didn't, so you all would notice I cut off my hair, right? No, well, we had an interesting final year project, process engineering or chemical engineering. We would have created an entire process plant for the production of sodium bicarbonate and sodium carbonate. So that's baking soda and soda ash. But what we had to do was we had to create a project. So we didn't actually create something tangible, but we did a lot of financial analysis, all of the calculations to meet the yield. So we looked at the entire project. It was a mammoth of a task, but it was fun.
And it was never done.
It was never done before. Usually in Trinidad, we stick to like ammonia and oil and gas projects because we could just go down to Point Lisas and grab some, So it was but we had a lot of fun. I want to also congratulate some, not just my group members who were in this group, for the final year project, but I also want to congratulate some of the UTT students, and I saw UE had their graduation as well.
Correct.
So all the graduating class of 2023 from whatever university, high school, whatever, congratulations to you as well.
Congrats. When I say congrats, I hope you can bring those process engineering skills to good use in a variety of organizations.
Well, I hope so too. I hope so too. It's interesting. I did my diploma in this, right? Chemical engineering, my National Engineering Technician's diploma in it. And when 2020, so I graduated from that diploma in 2020, and the pandemic happened, and I told myself, well, if it is that the UE Davie South Campus would have opened, I actually may have done law. Right? I may have done law. But then the pandemic happened, and
Well, the campus wasn't open.
well, it was open for other reasons. And so I found it was just easier to transition in the Bachelor of Applied Science and process permanent. So interestingly, I liked it, and now I love it.
Right.
So I'm gonna find a way, and that's why whenever I do my youth advocacy, you would notice I stick within this area of energy. Non-energy renewables, and you know that kind of conversation.
So you're an engineer now, youth advocate. Can we see you possibly being a minister of energy at some point?
Okay, no wait, just now, hold on. Well, I don't know if I want to answer that completely, but what I can say is, given from what we see in that lower house, anybody could be anything, right? Anybody could be anything. A lot of talent.
Yes.
Both sides, a lot of talent. Anybody could do anything. This is that now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking about anybody could do anything, we took a break. Of course, it would have been Diwali, and something very interesting. I think it was last week or the week. A very popular, spritey talk show host. I don't know if you are familiar. I think you sent me, or no, it wasn't you. Someone sent me the link to, I believe it's Crime Watch.
Yes.
Or Crime
Mr. Ian Allen.
Stop. Crime Stop. Is it Crime Watch?
Crime Watch.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, I want to say something. I look at Ian Allen for comical relief. So I don't look at him, every day. I don't really look at him, to take him that seriously. No offense. I think he's a funny person. He's entertaining, right? You go through TikTok and you
Chris,
see.
we send each other his TikToks and,
Yeah.
and we know the lines by heart.
Right? So I don't really look at him for news. I look at him more so for, maybe like a Jerry Springer, Trinidad, that kind of thing. It's funny, right? But he brought something very interesting into the forefront, and I know that we advertised today as we're going to discuss assessing effectiveness and navigating change, and that kind of conversation with politics and leadership. And of course, this conversation is not only going to be about you and me, it's about leadership on the whole. And so I want to ask you something. Did you see? You saw it.
I did have a gander.
Oh Lord. So there's this alleged coup, right?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on
The coup?
the alleged coup, the phrasing of the word coup, just everything about it? What are your thoughts on that?
First thing, let me just say that let me declare a little bias. I know Mr. Ian Allen. I mean, we're not personal, we're not friends.
That's
He's an acquaintance. I've met him, I see him around Shagonas. We have a laugh every now and then. So I have nothing personal against Mr. Allen. I too look at his show from time to time for entertainment.
Yeah.
And there are times in his show that he has actually helped people. He's put out information and asked for information and solved some problems.
Yes.
Perhaps not in the best or the most procedural ways that are available for persons. But he has solved issues, etc. So you have to give him, give Jack his jacket. He has done some good.
Yeah.
I saw the episode, I think it was a couple of days before Diwali, where he was essentially calling up members of parliament to ask them indirectly whether or not they were part of a coup, to sign a letter in order to have the leader of the opposition removed. And I found it was very remarkable that a talk show host could be calling up MPs to demand from them answers as to whether or not they're engaging in any process that they wish to engage in. So let me say three things. Firstly, I don't think that Mr. Ian Allen could have been serious in his inquiries. I think, quite frankly, it's insulting the way that he would attempt as a talk show host. And Lord, not derogatory to talk show host, obviously. You're there to ask questions. I don't consider him a serious journalist per se. I don't think he considers himself a serious journalist.
I don't think he does. No.
But apart from that, I don't think you have any right to be calling any MP on behalf of anybody to ask them what their decision is. There's been no public announcement about that. No MP has indicated that they
So
are
what is the
doing
intent
that.
of that? What is the intention of
I
something like
can't, it comes across to me that somebody is insecure
Somebody
and
is-
somebody has asked Mr. Allen to, I don't know, let me just say, I don't know, I have no facts. But if I had to guess, I would say that Mr. Allen is carrying out someone's agenda because perhaps they are insecure or perhaps they don't like this process or perhaps they don't want this to happen and he's decided he needs to call MPs. Now, whether or not that is true, I have no idea. And there is a process, there is a constitutional process which can take place if that is going on. There's nothing wrong in engaging in a constitutional process. I don't consider such a process to be quote-unquote a coup. It might be an unkind cut and it may be politically naive for you to engage in a process such as that.
Is it illegal?
It is not illegal, no. The Constitution provides that members of Parliament can give their support to someone in the lower house to be a leader of the opposition. As I said, it may be a politically bad move. It may be politically naive. That one could reasonably take the position that that is political suicide. So be it.
Now he mentioned that there's a senator
Right.
who dressing up. And of course, in his normal style
Yes.
of his way,
Yes.
whatever that is, his style. Explain to us if there were to be that process, whatever. I don't think the appropriate word is a coup. I have to disagree with him on that
Yeah,
word.
yeah, of course.
If there is in fact something like that going on, which we will discuss further, I don't think that's the correct word.
Yeah.
I think that's a scare tactic
Yes,
and
yeah.
a way to lament and to paint and to create these villains and these odds and
Yeah.
all of those things. So we're going to get into that. But I want you to address that thing about the senator part first. Could any senator sign any piece of paper or anything like that to effect change with an opposition leader?
Well, any senator could sign any piece of paper they see fit. It just would not have any legal effect. Right? So, in the context.
So what is
that
the
he's
purpose of him saying
Well,
that?
it had to be that it's some sort of ad hominem attack to a well-dressed senator. I mean, from what I see, all of the senators are well-dressed. Mr. Mark might be a little retro in his dressing. I see with a neuro neck every now and then.
Yes, yes,
but,
he's
but,
an
but
icon.
as far as I am aware, all of the senators dress well.
And all of them look
I
good.
am not a fashionista like you, Chris, but
Okay.
I assume they all dress well.
I find it right. That's a new boy. There's a former degree.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it? My mother's dress. Even for me.
We have plans in the Senate. No, but the point of that is to me is that I really, firstly, it seems wholly inappropriate that you are calling up MPs who are in their offices serving the people, doing what they are. All our MPs work hard in the UNC. That you would decide that you need to harass them, harangue them on that day.
Yeah.
One, and then two.
Publicly.
And then two, you are targeting a senator who I'm sure many people may think they know who it is. So it might be very unfortunate for a particular senator that you are deciding you need to rope that person in this conspiracy that you have concocted.
But who is he to speak on this? When I say who is he? This seems to be a conflict management issue. There's a conflict perhaps. And so that we want to resolve the conflict. Why is he so
I heard Mr. Ian Allen mention one thing and it had me wondering. He said there's a coup to take over the Lady Party.
Oh.
So it seems as if his defense is towards the current political leader. But when you refer and you say the Lady Party, I mean, it's the membership's party. So in that first instance, he's wrong. And I'm guessing, well, he's defending the political leader. But again, if it's a conflict management, you don't have to go to, as you say, the local Jerry Springer to resolve it.
Yeah, definitely not. And I mean, if that is where the UNC now is treated, this is how they treat with conflict resolution. This is not the first time we're seeing this. We had Councillor Boren on the first episode for the season. He spoke about conflict management. We are seeing a pattern of breakdown and conflict within Well, many political organizations, but today we're speaking about this issue that was brought into the forefront by Mr. Allen. We didn't bring this in, he brought it up.
But you know, I think, Chris, you and I are relatively young within the politics and to know how these parties operate. But is there something, Mr. Taklalsing, within the UNC to resolve these conflicts?
Well, two interesting things you've spoken about, and if I could just tackle them one at a time. The first thing is the Lady Party, quote unquote. That is an absolute misunderstanding as to how a political party works. I want to place that on the record. Legally, a political party is registered with the EBC, but what it's called is an unincorporated entity, an unincorporated association. Meaning it's not incorporated as a company would be incorporated in law, but by virtue of people associating with each other, paying a membership fee, agreeing to be bound by a constitution, that association is given legal life. It can be sued, and it can sue in some circumstances. Not in its own name, but through the name of its members and technical issues. But the point is, it has legal life. And the way the law works is that each member of the party is bound to the other member in a contract. And you have equal rights of every other member in that party.
So we're all on the same level?
We are all on the same level. Nobody's a better member than you. Nobody's a preferential member than you.
Or more loyal.
Or more loyal, or less loyal, or entitled to speak more than others. Now, some members may rise to the NATEX, which is the National Executive. Some members may rise to the Constituency Executive and other positions in the party. But at the end of the day, you are all members. You equally own the property of the party. You equally own the rights of the party. And you equally have a say in the party to say what you want to say or say what you don't want to say. Subject, of course, to disciplinary regulations and other things. But it does not mean that any member should be alienated from the party in any way. So I agree with you. Secondly, you spoke about conflict resolution. There is a disciplinary committee in the party to treat with conflicts which may unearth or which may be founding on disciplinary offenses under the Constitution. But apart from that, in any organization, you have leadership. A leader can appoint a mediation committee or a committee to resolve conflicts or to look into matters and report back to NATEX. All of that is within the power of NATEX to do. You have a chairman of the party, you have a general secretary who can intervene in these things, to solve these things. You have a structure, you have a constituency executive, which I'm sure Mr. Hatchie could tell us about. You have a constituency executive which is also tasked with resolving these issues. You don't have to expressly put something in a constitution or a document to say that you have the power to do it per se. These are things that you ought to be dealing with in your constituency to resolve these conflicts. So if there's a conflict in the party, then it should be resolved through some formal means. And more importantly, the third thing I want to say is that all of these conflicts you're speaking about, they are symptomatic of a structural decay in any organization. This is not about the UNC. We have murders taking place throughout this country. We are going to probably face a record murder rate in this country. Isn't that attributable in some way to a breakdown in the structure of society, in the police structure, in the law enforcement structure, in the justice system? It has to be. Similarly, in any organization where you have these things popping up, it's because you have breakdown in the structures that are designed to deal with them. And if we aren't dealing with them, and if we have these kinds of conflicts coming out that we can't resolve, it has to be a problem.
So I want to get to something specific, because of course there are some persons who think and they feel, and we know this because we exist around real people and we have real conversations and real debates, that this conversation is invalid, that you're on the heels of a general election. Why only talking about this? Why people allegedly trying to put names together and to do what? My question now is the conversation about leadership a valid one? I'm not speaking about who should stay and who should go. I'm saying just the conversation. Is it valid? I want to answer my own question.
Go ahead. Chris, do you think the conversation about leadership is valid?
Thank you, thank you. See, very good, very good, very good. I think it's a valid conversation.
Yeah.
I think what you're looking at here, It's almost a decade of opposition. What you're also looking at here is, as much as you want to spin and turn and twist and flip, we have not won the local government election.
Yeah.
If we won, then it would be not 7, it would be 8 or 9 or something.
Yes.
And then, how you win? I mean, the lowest voter turnout of, what it was, Shanta, 30.34%?
Correct.
That is something that is it is something that we know. And then I'm also looking at several things here. There were persons who were told, clear your name and come back. Clear your name and come back. Some persons, they didn't clear their name, but they reached back. And so even that defense that the UNC once had with, well, even though they were reshuffling every Monday morning during 2010 to 2015, that there was a defense that it was sober leadership because clear name and comeback was the sort of the criteria. Now, can the UNC even say that is the defense for that back then? I don't know. I think the conversation is very much valid. I even look at just 2020 to now. You have had several no confidence motions. You have had several protests. Specifically, let us speak about the fuel protests. When I think the gas prices would have been raised for the 3rd time. Was it last year?
Yeah.
And outside of MPs, senators, and councillors, was the United National Congress's leadership today, and I'm not just speaking about the political leader, I'm speaking about the national executive, was this leadership capable and able to mobilize the way that the unions, Dr. Rowley, and a specific person who is now the voice, the PRO of the UNC, that they were able to mobilize for Section 34? Thousands of people. Thousands of people. You know this?
You know, so, I remember, I think that was in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. The same individual you spoke about protested against that then PP government together with the trade unions, and that was a massive protest.
I think he even spoke to that the UNC is what it was, that we backward or we are dictatorship, something like that. We will.
And the individual protested with the PNM as well, and yet that same individual is within the UNC and can't share some ideas how to
mobilize people today. But, and that's the other thing. If this same individual stood with Rowley while you were the Prime Minister and ensured that you got out of government because he was a part of it, whatever effort was put in, whether a big one or small one, then how could that person be your PR, and then you tell persons, take me seriously? No wonder the voter turnout is 30.34%. Because you have persons like that. And then you said, clear name and come back. And people are back, but they are clear the name.
Chris, I just want to share some statistics with the voter turnout, right? This is for local election, and then we'll get to general election. So in 2010, I believe that local election was a few months after the PP would have won general election. That voter turnout was 39.1%.
Okay.
2013, that voter turnout was even higher, 43.1.
Hold on, let's discuss that.
However, we have to take into consideration 2013 was a shaky year for that government. They had a lot of, issues and
by-election.
And even though that voter turnout was higher, it wasn't in their benefit.
Yeah. Because we had, again, the protests and the mobilization.
Right, the PNM took control of San Fernando Corporation, Arima, Tunapuna, Piarco. Then we have 2016. So this is 1 year, approximately a year into the PNM being in government. 34.3. 2019, 34.4. 2023. Now, what is interesting about this year's local election, I would just give my opinion on it. I think this is the year of also issues within the present government. We have so much persons complaining about the standard of living and
then
so
they had
much
the issue with the Attorney General's changing.
So much issues. So if I want to compare, that 2013 within that government to now 2023 to this government, I would say, well, that's the scandal period.
Right.
But yet the voter turnout was significantly low, 30.3, but it wasn't in the interests of the opposition. We did not see how in 2013 the PNM, the then opposition, took control of Arima, Tunapuna, San Fernando. We did not see that.
So, my question now to you, after you asked me, right? Is the conversation a valid conversation?
Very valid. Politics, in my view, there are two sayings. I'll say the first one and maybe we'll get around to the second one. The first one is heavy is the head that wears the crown. Once you are a leader in politics or in anything, but especially in politics, you are going to be under constant criticism, and you have to be. That's the way we keep our leaders in check. You are there in a position. The way we get you to listen is through criticism, through discourse, through conversation. And if we're not having it or we're afraid to have it, then the leaders simply doesn't know or will not know what the ground is telling you, what the people are telling you, what your supporters are telling you, what changes you need to put in place in order to be successful. You are coming off of a period in the UNC, and this is, we aren't discussing leadership only with the UNC, but in the UNC, you're coming off a successive period of, failure. That's what it is.
Almost a decade.
Almost a decade of failure.
Can the UNC risk going in with political baggage for 2025 to risk 15 years? Has the UNC ever been in opposition for 15 years?
I mean, opposition parties have. But the difficulty here is, as I said, you're going into a decade of loss. You are at risk of probably not winning in 2025. People are entitled to their view. Now, alternatively, there may be those who say, well, look, don't rock the boat. We're done close already. We're already closed. Don't rock the boat. That's a view that you're entitled to.
But let's have the conversation at least.
Sure. Let's have the conversation.
Because the thing is, in a debate, you have the for, you have the against.
Yes.
And the better argument usually wins.
Yeah.
And if it is that your strategy is to censor the debate, that means you have no rebuttal.
Well, it also says that you're incompetent, because if you can't handle debate internally, how are you going to handle a national debate? Well, because the nation is also going to say, it's not only a party or your people are telling you, you may not be fit or we may not be able to win. The nation also needs convinced. People who don't care about the UNC or want nothing to do about the UNC, they may vote for you, but they don't want to be in the UNC or in the political stratosphere of the UNC, but they may support you because you are the alternative government.
Yeah.
How are you going to convince them if you can't, through debate and discourse and persuasion, convince people who love the UNC, who are members of the UNC? So take it as a good, test. Take it as a good practice match. Come out and convince your people, convince your supporters, convince your detractors in your party, because if you can't convince them, how are we going to convince the nation to vote for you?
Well, I have noticed that there's a strategy, right? There is a strategy, and I'll tell you what it is, right? And you all will tell me if you agree or not. That you censor the conversation, kill it.
Yeah.
And you say, we're in the heels of a general election, we're going to pick candidates, oh gosh, we're busy. Right? No problem. That's one strategy. The next strategy is the militancy, that all your anti-democracy and this and that and the next. Alright, so that's the next strategy. And I'm also noticing the other one is, the anti-Kamla, and that means the anti-the UNC.
And the pro-PNM.
And they want the PNM win.
Yeah.
And so that's the one. And then there's another one, which is a very interesting one. Sour grapes, ungrateful ni makaram.
Yeah.
My question is, specifically the last one, because I find that to be insulting and very, very shocking that I would use. If that is the argument, that sour grapes ni makaram, look, I make you a this, I make you a that, then there's a specific someone who has to go down to Philippines and apologize to Basil Pandey because they're ungrateful to him. He brought that person from NER when they were rejected by the people when they ran, and now they got the seat under him as a leader in UNC, so they must run down Philippines and apologize. I mean, that is a diabolical argument. That you're ungrateful. You know, I mean, Makaram, look at you.
It's absurd. I could never understand that. If you put yourself in a position to be a leader, you would firstly want to surround yourself with people who challenge you intellectually.
Correct.
And challenge your competence.
Correct.
And so naturally, you're going to always have to rise above and get better. Our economic system is predicated on competition. We're in a capitalist system. And you do better and businesses do better because the business down the road is giving you competition, and therefore you have to raise your game. That's how I understand it. So why not have and invite the competition and do better? I mean, there was a comment some years ago about being brighter than everybody. Well, if that's the case, you shouldn't worry about criticism. You should be able to answer the criticism, and don't get people and chain up supporters to go and say all of these things about sour grapes and the macaram and all of these whatever analogies you want to that really has no place in a modern political party which encourages discussion and debate. In America, you have internal debates all the time.
Going on right now.
In UK, when Rishi Sunak, when they were running against, it was Liz Truss, calling brutal debates, respectful but brutal debates. That is what it's about, because you are coming through your political party. It must be a crucible, a real crucible. You must forge yourself in the fires of debate, discussion, policy, come out on top, and then you can lead your party. But you can't lead a party seriously, or you can't successfully lead a party, or you can't successfully lead any organization if your answer to everything is to, well, everybody stay quiet.
I want to get to something. You want to say something?
What I want to know, why is even the topic of succession planning for leadership a taboo topic though within the UNC?
I think it doesn't help some of the persons there, and I'm not speaking about the well, I think some of the MPs benefit from the chaos because this is their only way to be employed. Some of them, both PNM, this is not something only in the UNC, I want to say.
I think politicians
So some persons are very satisfied knowing that, well, if I'm an MP today and we land up in opposition in 2025, that's fine. I'll do that.
Because, the behavior seems as if, I have a deed, this is my party, I own this party.
It's very emotive.
And by divine right or so, it will come down to this one or that one.
And that next election is supposed to be the next year?
Yes.
Now, I know political leader is not due next year, it is due in 2024, I believe.
Yes.
But national executive is due next year. While we were speaking, I just thought of a few things here. This current national executive, we saw some persons would have resigned and some joined the People's National Movement. Former senator and Tobago coordinator, former Tahaka Obika, former youth chairman, Kavish Seulial. We saw the former PR of the youth as well. He would have, I think he was almost a candidate in the PNM or something like that. And so, I think there are some persons there that have some questions to answer as well. So I think it will only make sense for Inatex election to happen next year. I'm hearing that there may be a postponement. I do not know. I'm asking you, is it illegal? Is it legal?
It can be extended if it is agreed to in the Congress, etc., but it ought not to.
Well, based on what we just said.
It should not. I mean, ultimately, really, the legal interpretation of the Constitution, you should have it when it is due. There is a residual power if there's some, so for instance, if an election is called next year, let's say, then you may have an argument to say, well, we should postpone it, and it has been postponed in the past. Really, I don't think that's the politically savvy thing to do. I don't think the UNC having raped the PNM over the coals for putting off the national elections.
Didn't we go to the Privy Council?
We went all the way to the Privy Council.
We won.
We won in order to get the right to have a 30% turnout, right?
30.34. You see how you're unfair? Misleading the people.
Order, yes.
30.34%.
So we had a Privy Council judgment to come out to vote or to have a local government election and yet you would then contemplate potentially putting off your own internal election.
Yeah,
that to me is extremely hypocritical. In fact, I would put my head on a block to say that is not going to happen. I can't believe.
I don't think it would happen.
As
I don't think
lovers of democracy, as a party who believes in the rule of law, as a party who believes in elections when elections are due, I cannot see. I put my head on a block today that any NATEX election will be put off next year. I believe that NATEX election must be called next year.
Yeah, because that NATEX, I believe they oversee the screening committee and those sort of things. So they would have a mammoth task to select candidates.
Well, deputy political leaders to start with, it projects who your party leadership is.
Okay.
You have a party organizer, which is an extremely important position. Not to throw fat. Party organizer means organizing the arms of your party to ensure that everybody's functioning.
Who is the current party organizer? I'm not sure.
Is it Mr. Rathier?
I think so.
I think so.
Yes, I think so.
It is?
It might be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So
The MP?
the MP, yes.
Okay.
Kuva North, yeah.
Kuva North.
So the party organizer, extremely important position. You have chairman, you have an election officer, I believe as well, Hachi. In an election, I would think that the election officer is an extremely important position.
Correct.
So those are important positions that need to be sorted out prior to going into any election, going into any battle. This NATEX has been tested in a local government election. Unfortunately, they have not been able to win the local government. I said very publicly, and I stand by it, that I think we may disagree here, that I think there were some things you could look positives at. You could take some positives away. There were some gains in some places, but there were also losses in some places, right?
Yeah, like Indian Walk Lengua.
Like Indian.
Which came down to, what was this? It was my DDP and my BS, we're not too sure.
Yeah.
But we won, I believe it's Rajesh Lal, would have won that by almost about 300 or 400 more votes in 2019.
But we were slipping
But that's
to
supposed
win by one vote this time.
Yeah, but Princestown is the fortress.
Exactly. So if you're losing in Princestown, I think whoever the MP is for Princestown needs to take stock of what is happening there. The constituency executive needs to take stock of what is, and the party organizer and the party and NATEX.
But it seems to me there are some people who are not interested in that. They're interested in going on a press conference and saying which MP is conflicted and who not
Well, I
conflicted.
think I heard another famous, another very prominent talk show host saying, if I'm not mistaken, that we're more interested in winning internal elections than national elections.
No, but
I don't know if you know that person. But
so, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that talk show.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Is the conversation valid?
yes.
The conversation is very much
Should we have a
valid.
vote? All in favor that the conversation is
Aye.
valid. Let's say aye.
Like, because there's this thing that, but why you want a conversation? We win outright, overwhelmingly. The leadership is beautiful, it is great. Confidence here. We have alliance and it working and this and that and next. Don't do no campaign. We done win just so.
Yeah.
So that is the Kelly talk, right?
Yeah.
I don't my age group we don't say that's a Kelly talk, right?
Yeah.
No, but that is the Kelly talk. So is the conversation valid? I think it's a very valid one. Let us engage in the
I would
conversation.
go one further. I think it's a necessary conversation.
Well,
Yeah.
Do you think that the NATEX, because I realized that the UNC uses shadow, so shadow for education, shadow for this. Does the NATEX reflect shadow or what is to come?
Okay.
What is the potential government? So for example, we see, and I'm just saying randomly, we see the legal advisor to NATEX is Mr. Brian Baig. Could that possibly be, well, maybe shadow for Attorney General or legal affairs?
The shadow system is usually in the MP arena, the member of parliament. So that you usually have shadow portfolios, security. So you normally have a lawyer in the house that deals with that.
sorry, you can't be serious. You're not serious. This is not a joke. That's a joke of the day or something. No, but
Shadow portfolios are meant to be persons in the house. So you have a shadow. If If you look at the parliament of the UK, you have
Speaking about shadows. Speaking about shadows. Let's speak about shadows for a minute here. I remember in 2014-15, whether you like Rowley or not, and I'm not a big Rowley fan, and I have to put it nicely, right? I respect the Honorable Prime Minister, I want to say that. I'm not the biggest fan, right? We have our opinions and that is okay. But he was a very effective, now notice what I'm saying, effective opposition leader.
Yes.
He handled Prime Minister questions. When was the last time that this current opposition leader, who was a former Prime Minister,
Who is the Prime Minister in waiting?
probed the current Prime Minister for Prime Minister questions? When was the last time? You could recall?
I can't recall.
You recall? I can't recall neither.
And you know, I'm a Prime Minister's questions group.
I love it.
I love it. I always look at it in there's Australia and there's UK, my two favorite. And when you hear, I mean, when you listen to, for instance, when Tony Blair was opposition leader going against John Major, or when Tony Blair was Prime Minister going against David Cameron, or Rishi Sunak and the current opposition leader, what's his name? Opposition leader. No, he's a lawyer. I actually met him once. When you listen to that type of Prime Minister question, and you listen to what is happening in our Parliament, something is missing. And I really do think perhaps the opposition should re-strategize how they do Prime Minister's questions. You have to be more targeted. You should deal perhaps with one topic or two topics, and maybe line up all the questions for one person to attack the Prime Minister, perhaps the next Prime Minister, the Prime Minister in waiting.
Well, I want to say, because we can predict now, because it's predictable what the apologists would say. They would say, well, there are shadows, so that yes, but we specifically speak about Prime Minister question. We're not talking about the other ones, right? So specifically, very direct point. We're speaking about Prime Minister questions. My view is the Prime Minister in waiting should go toe to toe. That is what I expect. That is the kind of vibrancy, the energy that we want from the opposition. Supposed to be vibrant, energetic.
Well, again, say what you want about Dr. Rowley. When he was the opposition leader, he was arrogant, he was boisterous, he was loud. And you know, as much as UNC supporters hate that, he was able to mobilize his PNM supporters and
even Dr. Mego, who's the current PRO, stood next to him.
But my question is why? Why is the PNM's machinery and what they do, their opposition leader at the time, they were effective, they were able to taint a government and call them corrupt? Why haven't the UNC been able to, after 8 years, to even,
well, almost a decade,
paint this current government as at least a little piece of corrupt?
Well, I'll throw out for you the controversy. The detractors would say, well, the PNM has discipline and the UNC has no discipline. So let me ask you, Chris, what do you think about that? Is it that the PNM is a party that has political discipline and that keeps them in power?
I don't think...
But the UNC has no discipline.
No. I don't think it is a question of discipline. I don't think it's a question of discipline at all. I think if that is how you feel or you interpret that, I think it can be interpreted as a dictatorship. In that way. I view it that way. Because if we are in a modern Trinidad and Tobago, some new people coined it that way, right? If we are in modern Trinidad and Tobago and speaking about modern democracy, then freedom of speech, choice, that kind of thing, expression must be allowed. So don't censor nobody. And I've noticed in the PNM, which is one of the reasons why I question much of the ideologies now, especially under their new leadership, is that it seems to me there's no space for that kind of conversation there. And I'm also noticing now in the UNC that it is becoming as though there's no space here as well.
In my view, and just to answer my own question, right, because there's a reason I asked it, right? I have heard this argument about discipline and clothes on the washing the dirty linen and washing their clothes in the public, and I reject all of that outright. I think the best way to deal with bad ideas is by persons with good ideas counteracting the bad ideas and criticizing them and dealing with them, right? So that's the way you deal with it in any organization. The second thing I want to say about that is there's another type of organization which practices silence, keeping everything quiet and doing whatever the leadership says, and that's called a cult, right? No political party should ever take on the persona of a cult. The people say the PNM is a cult for doing that, and I tend to agree. Because you never hear about any dissension in the PNM because they like to keep it quiet and cliquish and cultish. It's almost like they're going into some, worship room with hood zone somewhere quietly and resolving their issues. I don't want that for the UNC. I don't know if you want that for the UNC. I don't think anybody wants that for the UNC. I prefer to hear what the detractors have to say.
And debate them.
Like, why are we afraid, especially as a political party, to debate ideas and have virulent discussion? I don't understand why not.
But what we can do is break silence to talk about we feet. Because it seems as though that is what we care about. We break our silence to speak about our feet. Or we speak about, no, that is the reality. Right. We break our silence. Or we, instead of condemning properly, you're going to insult people.
Intellectually lazy.
Yeah. And then you're going to parade down the place for a few days to feel people will forget what you say. Right? No. Listen, we are in 2023. What you say is very permanent. It is very much there. Nobody is stupid. Nobody is dotish. We could read into it. That is why you see 30.3-4% of a voter turnout. Because this is not something people are willing to buy into. My question is, because here's what the apologists say. If not her or this version, then who? If not her, then who? Then nobody.
I think there are several MPs.
I think there are several MPs
Several MPs who would make good leaders.
I think so too.
I am not pushing anybody. My father taught me to swim by pushing them in the pool. I am not pushing anybody into a political pool. But there are several MPs who I think could do an excellent job at leadership.
I agree.
So I don't see any issue if, a Rushdan Parry or Anita Haynes or a Dinesh Ramban
or Jolene John
or Rudal Munila
or Dave Tanku
or these people.
Or Saddam Hussein.
And this is not to leave out anybody to say they aren't thing, but they are names which come easily.
And I want to be a little more specific to even Anil Roberts. I mean,
why not?
Anil has a lot of experience.
Anil,
he was an MP, he was a minister. Even Jolene John, she was a minister. So why, so I agree. I don't think if not her or if not this group, then who? Several people.
And there are a lot of sayings about leadership. And one of the tests of leadership is to create other leaders. They say that the test for a teacher is that your student will one day surpass you. That's how good you teach the student. And I think the same applies to leadership and in politics, that one day those under you or those you have been grooming should surpass you and challenge you. And that's the right, that is the rite of passage that politicians face, that one day you will be challenged by a fellow politician and you will have to treat with it.
I want to come back to something because I want to ask you a question, so we're recircling. You think some of the protests, would you consider the protests, the mobilization of protests? And I want to be specific in that a protest is our democratic way of saying no. So we say no, and that's how we do it. 2021, we had a SOE extension, whatever. Was it 21? 2021?
21, yeah.
We were told, honk your horns to say what? No. And that was the plan.
Yeah.
Honk your horn to say no.
Yeah.
And went in parliament. Them I say no. Weinstein.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, I just have honorable mention, has the protests, all these outside parliament with placard and councillors, have these protests been effective? Do you think that the protest has been effective, like a Section 34?
I think, as an observation that you make, every time I look at a protest, especially Potomac UNC, it is usually the councillors, a few well-known supporters who follow the councillors, and maybe sometimes some MPs join it. But you don't really have
some senators
what you call an organic following behind these protests. And if you can't, listen, we could keep fooling ourselves and keep saying, oh, we have this crowd and it's MPs and corporation workers and councillors coming out. We could fool ourselves if we want, but at the end of the day, you should ask yourself the hard question. Are you attracting the population to come and join you in these types of exercises? And the answer seems to be no.
Well, we saw it with August the 14th, 2023, 30.34%. And no matter how you try to spin and turn and twist, the reality is that has been the lowest voter turnout in a local government.
You know,
election.
when the UNC was formed, it stood on certain principles. It got the support of the sugar workers. Mr. Pandey fought for those workers. Do you think the UNC now, is it what it was back then? Do you think that is the reason why persons are not attracted towards the party?
That's a difficult question because
let me just cut you. What does it stand for now? So back then, it was formed based on the plight of sugar workers. Is it still falling on the plight of workers, or what does it really stand for?
Well, I see press releases now for PTSD persons who need to use the washroom. I think that might be an answer. Is that an answer? Is that a good answer?
No,
but I'm not making this up.
Oh yes, I agree with you. It was a stupid press release, with all due respect. But you know, Shant, there are two things there. One, I agree with you that the UNC it mobilized and formed around a certain special interest, workers, sugar workers, other workers, and the ethos at that time was wanting equity.
Right.
You wanted these were disaffected and alienated persons who wanted a space and a say in how the country would govern its affairs, and that's essentially what the UNC was about. We were also the rule of law party. You know, we had people like Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj in the party who ensured that proper legislation came to fight discrimination. You have the Equal Opportunities Tribunal, you had the Judicial Review Act, you had the Freedom of Information Act, which allowed us to access information to fight these types of things. So that is what our party stood for in the early days. Now, the question is, you know, it tapers off here a little bit because you have to evolve. So you can't win on your founding support only. You now have to move into spheres where you are able to attract the business class. What is your taxation policy? What is your import policy? What is your diversification policy? You know, what is your arts and culture policy? What is your youth policy? So now you bring in, I see Chris wants to jump in with youth policy, but you know, you bring in the different interests. So you naturally are going to evolve. You won't stay the same, and you want to evolve. But I agree with you to some extent that sort of passion and passionate cause, there seems to be, you know, a little frittering away of that, and for other things like fighting the toilet tax and other
It's
issues.
a very big fight.
It's a big fight.
Huge
It was a big fight.
Huge fight.
You know, when I look at the 2020 general election results, and just to go back at that general election, and I look at most the marginal seats. So when we tally the UNC and PNM votes and we look at the total registered voters, at least in St. Joseph, Tunapuna, and other constituencies, there are persons, about 8 to 10,000 persons who are not voting. And the question is, why the UNC, the second political party within this country, why are they not attracting these voters?
We're not talking to them. We're talking to ourselves.
I
All of our conversations, we praise ourselves, we talk to ourselves, we say things we want to hear. But we don't engage that group. We don't want to talk to them, it seems. We're not talking to them.
Well, the question is, does the current leadership want to win?
That may be, I mean, I would think so, but I don't think they're
But the
doing about
actions
it.
must follow the words, right?
Actions must follow the
But
That's
Chris,
the best way to
let me ask you, I'm putting you in the hot seat here. You graduated last week. You are a young person. Do you feel the conversation is geared towards you?
No, not at all. I want to be very specific here. I too, so I live San Fernando West, for some of you all who do not know. Well, I'm speaking in terms of constituency, but I live San Fernando, right? But San Fernando West in terms of constituency. And I come from a very specific background. I would consider my family to be working class and that kind of thing, right? And I was very undecided in 2018, 2019, but I knew in 2019 it would be my first election I'd be able to vote in, because I was 19 years old in 2019. And at that time, I looked, we did regional youth parliament, 2018 we did youth parliament, 2019 we did regional. So we were back in the parliament. And so I was looking at both sides, and I did my little dive into PNM's history, how it was founded, their plans, their policies. So I went back to 56, I went back to Williams, Chambers, all of them. Similarly, came down to UNC with Panday, 86, 80, Club 88, and all these different things. So I was really, really intrigued. You know, you go down, I think it's called like a rabbit hole of politics. You just want to know what happened and to understand, because if you know the past, you're able to appreciate where you are now and where you're going. And at that time, there were many persons who were speaking a language that I felt aligned with me at that time. And some are still speaking away. The PRO at the time was Anita Haynes. You had persons like Tahaka Obika as a senator. You had somebody like Sean Sobers as a senator. You had somebody like Saddam Hussein as a senator. And some of these persons are still there, by the way, right? You also had in your lower house people like Fazal Karim, people like Ganga Singh, people like Botiwari, right? Well, Russian is still there, thank God, right? So you had a Vidya Gayadin Gopi Singh. So you had persons who were able to navigate a debate. I remember you, Rambajan would get up and have no notes, zero notes, and just debate, you know, extemporaneously. And that kind of debate is something that I was very much interested in. It was content-driven substance. And so I saw an organization that was speaking to me. Even in Kamla's response, 2019, was September, October, somewhere there, her budget response for 2020, just before the general election, that master plan, she's speaking to me. And so the question is, to answer it is, nobody's speaking to me right now. There are a few MPs in the UNC and 1 or 2 senators in the UNC that speak. But the way that they are treated, it seems to me that they're trying to be backbenched and they're trying to be replicated for 2025 with manipulated narratives to have more persons who would say yes and stand up behind you in Palmis Park.
Yeah.
No, we don't have persons like you, young persons like you, going down that rabbit hole to do the history, look at the pros, the cons, the policy, the ideologies, and all of that. And I also think that this generation, like ours, the grandma and the tanty and the mommy cannot tell them, we are UNC till we dead, go and vote UNC.
No, they can't do that.
We are PNM till we dead, go and vote PNM.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that even in my household, that don't happen in my where I live. My grandparents, even my mom, even my dad, that does not that don't exist with our generation. And what is interesting, you sent me a video on Instagram.
I sent you a video. It's a video. One of our colleagues, we met her at youth.
The opening of the Red House.
Yes, she's a former youth parliamentarian. We went to high school together. She was a few years younger than me, and I saw she joined this political party, Hope.
Timothy Hamel-Smith and Tashera Andy.
Correct. And when I look at this girl, I look at brains. And, you know, I thought to myself, maybe she should join the UNC. This is the type of people we want in the UNC.
Correct.
But now seeing her going to join neither the PNM nor the UNC, but you're going towards that third party. And we know that this third party may contest the general election.
I think they will, and I want to just say something here. And remember, I said it, I am no seer man, but I think Hope might really be the true COP for 2025. If things stay, if the status quo stays the same, I think Hope might be the real COP. Because it have somebody here trying to pretend they're COP but couldn't get any vote in 2023 and telling me about the bridge constituency, not a bridge.
Yeah. But you know
the
what
bridge
is,
fall down, London Bridge has fallen down.
You know what is my my issue with the UNC, and I will say it. When I look at the ideologies and the principles behind the UNC, it was never formed to latch on to anybody or any third party. That is a narrow ideology.
Oh Lord.
And I personally believe the UNC could win an election on their own if they attract the right people.
So let us again say the conversation is valid. This conversation that we're engaged in is a very valid one for these reasons. I agree with you. I think that there's a error in who the target audience is. And I think that the things that you say, your actions must back it up. And if it is you're saying you want to win, well then there's things to show us that you want to win.
Correct.
Your frontline bench, right? Do not send out some MPs to attack another one because the man posts a picture with some people on Facebook. Don't do that. Because in reality, maybe that person not even really like that much right now. Sure. Don't send another MP in another MP constituency to try to form his or her own slate against people because you insecure about leadership and want to be this and that. And whether you know or don't know or know about it after the fact and you don't do anything about it, I think is even worse. Yeah. So we seem to be more interested in that kind of almost underhand, behind we back. I'll tell you a little something here, and I'll be honest because we've been candid. We invited a specific person to come on this program twice. You know what I'm talking about, twice.
An MP?
Yeah, twice. And you know what this person told me? They couldn't do it. They were busy, and they said they'll send their speechwriters. Imagine that. And not just that, is disrespect, right? Because not because you are an MP means you are less or better than anybody, right? You are representing people. People invite you to have a conversation and something that you should grab it.
I mean, look at one of the best attorneys in the country is here with us. Took
Correct.
time out of his busy schedule to be here. Whether he was bullied or not.
Nobody bullied. He was here on his
own free will.
We asked him, right? No, but so the person said they couldn't make it, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, I want to say we are very grateful. We have had several discourses with many MPs and senators, almost all, right? And they have been very easy to work with, and almost all of them. But this specific one, and so we decided to change. So we're not going to have a speechwriter on. So we said we're going to have a counselor at that time, a sitting counselor, come on, to discuss that topic. And this person called me and told me, do not have that counselor on because they're anti-Kamla. They're anti-Kamla. And so do not have that person on. That's what so you don't want to do it. We'll send you a speechwriter, but then we'll have the audacity and the unmitigated gall to tell me
how to run your show.
Not how to run my show, it's not that. But you think that I will be convinced by that?
Run your show. It's a group show.
Let us pronounce they are a thing. And that's a disrespectful, and that's the kind of things that the people ought to know. Because I feel as though stones are being thrown and pelted and people want to hide their hands. That's what they want to do essentially.
Yeah.
But on critical conversations, we discuss everything, because as we set out in the beginning of the show, this show is supposed to serve a purpose and to allow for every political discourse possible, because no one is really willing to go that deep into these kind of analysis.
You're not going to have a choir praising?
No, which means you're not going to find us just,
inviting people of one view.
Right, inviting people of one view
Praise the leadership, praise the leader.
to praise you, and then we walk behind you, in front of you, on the side of you, and then we watching, right? And all of these theatrics, because you're one person's belief. If you take this picture, that means the confidence is behind you. Those things are not 2023 politics. Maybe in the 80s and thing, them thing would have work. But nowadays, it have people like me. And it have plenty people like me. Plenty people like me. I think it's about 20,000 persons graduate every year. So there are 20,000 people similar to me that may think similarly, right? I've served on the Guild at UTC. I was the PRO of the Executive Student Guild, and I have interacted with many students, and I could tell you, based on those interactions, we have a similar way of analyzing things. So it don't mean that I take a picture with people that, so the conversation is valid. Do not backbench persons. UNC did not have a Monday night forum since local government election. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that. I definitely can't answer that.
Why? You tell me. You can't answer that. I heard there's going to be one next week. I will be tuning in to hear the update. I mean, what month are we in? We're in November.
We should go.
August.
Let's go.
September,
Where is it?
October.
Where is the Monday night?
I believe, I heard it might be in Central. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Right? So we had September, October, no, almost 3 months. Almost 3 months.
Sabbatical.
For what? You are the opposition?
Yeah.
What you take a time off for? It have no time off.
Well, there's sufficient. There are enough people that even if a few people can't be there, there are enough people who could come and speak to the people on a Monday night.
I understand and I sympathize, because from what I understand, that there was some persons who were ill or whatever, and that's okay. We all get sick sometimes. I had the virus last week. I know there's a virus going on, by the way, right? So sanitize. Remember the precautions. Sanitize. Coughing, what it is, your elbow, whatever. You all know what to do. We went through the pandemic and we lived. So practice, right? Practice the precautions. But it's okay if you get sick from then, that's fine. But I agree, show must go on. I have plenty of people. Again, Jolene John, Rushton, Rudal, Anil, Anita. It have real. So why are we 3 months? What we was doing? What we do? Were we running the opposition through press release and Facebook posts?
Well, yes, I think some people said that.
No, but that is, so the conversation is, this is something that is, you are serving people,
Yeah.
You're not serving yourself and feel, well, I get the mandate and I just run and I just, no. What you say, you must represent the people. And so if you have a constituency, I am just using an example, Siparia is a constituency, you must consult with the people of Siparia, and that must be reflected in your speech.
As you say that, it brought me back to 2019 local election, which I found the UNC did pretty
I think so.
well at that
Work
local
nation.
election. But they got a bit laid back. They got a little bit laid back in that run-up towards the general election. Now, they came out of that local election in August this year. They say they won. They thought they won. So is it routine now to get a little laid back in the run-up to a general election? And then 3 weeks before the election, you name your candidates and hope to win?
Well, let's talk about that, right? We're in the heels of a general election. Don't have this conversation. It hurts the party. So, if we didn't have this conversation in 2009, was there going to be a 29-12 house?
Correct.
I believe it was 4 months, Mrs. Bisasa.
Yeah.
She became the political leader, and I think it's 4 or 5 months she became the prime minister.
Well, and it's because the conversation, people seem to think that, it just happened like this, but it's because you had a whole year or two prior to 2009 of that conversation.
Did she coup the party?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think she coup the party neither.
No. I don't think she did.
No, I don't think. Is she ungrateful to Pandey?
Yeah, well.
No, it's a democracy. This is a part of it. This is what you engage in.
Yes.
You can't play mass and Fred Powder. You can't go to a Juve party and get paint on you and then vex and want to and sue the people and tell them, no, shut down this event. We have no more event. They're trying to kuma.
Expel them.
Expel them. We might stop this party. We don't want no juve, no paint, no powder, nothing. You can't do that.
No, that's not a political party.
What is that?
A political party has to always engage in conversations. We ought to really be, and someone said it to me last week. They said that a political party should be about policy and not personality. And I always feel that that's an important thing.
I agree with that. I agree
it should
because
be about your policy and not this personality that you want to defend. Defend your policies. If you ask some people who are busy defending personalities what the policy of A, B, C of the parties, they can't tell you.
No, but that's true because personality is something that we see a lot of right now.
Yeah.
Even in the PM, we see a lot of personality,
Yes.
less of policy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll even say another thing. You ask me what the graduates thought, and I'll be honest because I am not here to just only speak my view. I speak with a number of young people. We have real friends, right? We're friendly, right? And they don't buy into the TASA playing all rise. They don't. We don't, and it's nothing against TASA. It is that this sort of big song and dance when you enter a room. Like, let us, it is 2023.
I heard a commentator say deification, right? You make yourself a deity in the party or a deity amongst your followers. I can't understand that.
Where there's this emotional attachment.
We need to break that, or else you're not going to do well. We need to be a strong party, a party that can take criticism and give criticism. You need to move away from the one-person show and build a strong team and go forward. And if you can't do that, we're going to be right here having this conversation in 2022, 2023.
When was the last time the opposition leader did a face-to-face interview? So we asked the question about Prime Minister question. My question was face-to-face interview. Because I've seen Dr. Rowley. We nobody promoting Rowley here because that will be the apologists. They will say that will anti
them compass people.
Compass, oh good. They're going against, they get back out.
Compass ain't working.
Yeah, right? The PRM take them, oh gosh, no. Please.
Spare us.
Spare us. Don't do that. Let us not do that. When last you did that interview? Face-to-face.
Honestly, I can't remember, but the apologists will say the media house bias, so we're not going there. But regardless of what, that is our mainstream media.
Yeah.
We have to prove to them and prove to the population we are viable.
Everybody is the problem. Everybody is the villain. The media, EBC, the I am being sarcastic. Pablo or the man like Vasaro Goji, villains, right?
Yeah.
Now we have the three musketeers who trying to cool down the place. Everybody's a villain.
Kamla must go crew.
Kamla must go crew, right?
That's an important
No. Let us take it down a notch.
Yeah.
It is simply a conversation that is being had. I must say that if these are the things that we are on the outside, we are not caucusing. If we could see these things, you know what I surprised by? I surprised it's only 10. I'm surprised because if they are on the inside,
well, we don't know if that's true.
If it is in fact true, if I am just saying, if it is in fact true, right? I am surprised it's only 10.
Right.
I want to know what's wrong with the rest of them. What went to the rest of them? But this is an interesting conversation, and I know we're running out of some time here, but we're going to keep this conversation at the forefront because this is something that we need to engage in, right? Because the reality is, you could engage in this conversation, and after you debate this, you could realize that no, the best person to drive the bus is Mrs. Bisasa, Outcome as well. Engage in the conversation, have the debate. People want to have a conversation. Don't try to censor things and send out bullies to try to call down people on their phone and that kind of thing. That is very,
Bullies is a strong word for that person.
Well, I am not being that specific.
Call prankers. Call prankers. That had to be a prank. But I saw something where if he had called a certain MP, he may not have You may not have lived through that
Oh,
one.
I heard that. I heard that too, sir.
That's it. Other
I
MPs
heard
were
so.
waiting for the call.
You know, when as I told you, 2019 was the year for me. With elections and all of that. You know, there's a big villain in this party that if you took a picture with the man, if you comment on the post, if you like the post, they are you. You don't like his post. So you hear all these conspiracies about he trying to coup the party, he wants to be the leader.
Well, you know, that's the thing. I mean, that's for the membership. Don't be afraid to criticize, because no one has criticized this party worse than Mr. Gary Griffith and Mr. Jack Warner, in my view. They have said very bad things when they were obviously not a part of the Grand Coalition about the party. They have said, the Grand Coalition. They have the triple entendre, as they say in European history, right? They have said very bad things about this party.
They told us about some person's work ethics and how long they work on, sir. The worst things.
Which would have chipped away people's confidence in the party, and now they're back at the forefront. I saw a lovely Diwali picture.
Is it desperation, political desperation?
I mean, I think,
Especially when nothing has changed within the party.
Do you think, question, so I want you all to put on your CMan hat right now.
Are you going to answer your question?
No, I want all the answers, right? Had the UNC faced the electorate in 2022
Yeah.
without an alliance, that they would have been more successful?
2023 without an alliance.
Without NTA and without Jack and...
I mean, that's an almost impossible question to answer, because it's hypothetical. If I had to guess, I would say we would have done no worse.
So then, the conversation...
We could have done better. We would have done no worse. I don't think, with all due respect to Mr. Griffith and Mr. Warner, I don't think they really added anything. Mr. Griffith's party was a very new party. They did little to no work as a party to convince people. If you're coming into alliance, I think you should bring something. The COP had a large following coming into 2010. Nobody could dispute that, because they had about 2 or 3 years of building. The NTA really was a fledgling party at the time, and this is no disrespect. You have to start somewhere, and they started, and there were some positive signs in the party, but they really didn't bring any large following. And for you to come out and claim that you were all of a sudden the third voice, the voice of the third constituency, I mean, people just looked at that and I think laughed, and they said, no, you don't speak to me, because we don't know what you're speaking about.
What we know, I don't know if everyone knows this, but persons found it to be insulting. A lot of UNC members also felt that, because we interact,
You know, you bring back the same persons who brought down that working government.
And it is something that is etched in our memory. And so...
No, that is not to say. Because, politics is a strange thing. And today you could be against the Moria 4 and you have political alliance. We can't be politically naive at the same time.
Correct.
Alliances may have to be made for the greater good, and so be it. But the point is, it must have rubbed salt in the wound, especially for UNC soldiers in the east-west corridor, because that's the battlefront. It's all well and good to sit in Central and South, or some parts of South and Princeton and Siparia, and invite these things. But when you get into the east-west corridor, that's a battleground. Every vote you win there is important, and you get cursed, you get buffed up every time your party makes a bad decision there. You forgive things in Central and in some parts of South, but when you're there, and so for those people in the South who had to hear in 2015, let's say, people telling you're going to convince somebody, they say, but no, but Gary Griffith saying this about you, Mr. Warner is saying this about you, etc. They were from your party and they're saying this, why I must vote for you? So you take all that licks in 2015, you take that licks again in 2020, right? And then you come now in 2023 to say, no, they were wrong in 2015 and 2023.
we hugged, we made up.
We good now.
We are good.
Maybe they were wrong and we forgive them. No, you're actually cementing their view.
And who is to say that wouldn't happen again?
Well, that's it. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Mr. Rowley might be the next year. For all we know, the way things are going.
Dr. Rowley are doing that. He can do many things, but he is doing that. But so again, the question is the conversation about leadership a valid question? I think we know the answer.
I think it is. I think it's a necessary conversation. I also think that members are protected by their constitution and by their legal rights in having that conversation. Nobody could expel you for having that conversation. Forget that talk. And I think it's important. Apart from it being a valid one, a necessary one, I think it's your duty as a member to speak on these issues, because ultimately these things lead to change, or they could lead to better representation and stronger representation and leadership.
I wanna leave it there for now, and we're gonna be inviting a few persons on Critical Conversations to follow up with this
Are you
conversation.
going to call that MP a third time and see what he has to say? I personally want to hear what he says on the third occasion.
Well, you
so
know-
for me, give him a call, or her, I don't know who it is, give him or her a call this week and come on the show next week. Let's have a segment of your show, if you don't mind me.
Look at his nice co-host.
I think you should have a segment on the show as to what the MP said this week. Guess what he told me this week? Guess what he told me?
Well, so I want to say we miss Narmada, right?
Yes.
But for the next maybe 2 episodes, we're gonna have someone else join us. Who knows, it might be you again, right? So who knows, you might be the one giving the person the call. You will be giving the person the
Well, Chris, our guest telling you how to run your show and your segment, so he could come back next
It
week.
is not my show. This is collective. It is a pronoun, right? This is not the what it was, the lady party. This is not Chris show or the man show or anything like that, right? Let's not do that, right? We are against language like that, right? But as I said, we're going to be looking more into this topic. We're going to invite some persons on. We're going to continue with our Critical Conversations business. I know there are some issues that we need to discuss as it relates to TSTT, human trafficking, and a number of other things. So stay tuned, stay with us. Next week we will be further developing other conversations, and I spoke with a specific someone who told me that they will be interested in being a guest to discuss a topic like this. And so I don't want to give this person name away. It will be a surprise. So stay with us. I want to thank you both for co-hosting with me
Anytime.
this evening. And we want to know what you think. So you can comment below and tell us how you feel. What are your opinions? We want to know your opinions, good, bad, and different. Don't be afraid. We are not bullies or anything like that. We like, that's why it's called Critical Conversations. And if you want to send us an email too, you can as well. It is on our social media platforms. So this has been Critical Conversations.